Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about how randomness can shape the way species evolve. Yep, sometimes nature just rolls the dice and the results are fascinating. This process is called genetic drift, and it's one of the areas studied in the Birch Lab here at UNC. Alright, let's start with the basics. What is evolution? Evolution is a process by which living things change over time. It's like a recipe that gets tweaked a little bit with each new version. The ingredients, or DNA, are constantly being adjusted. Sometimes these changes are small, like adding a pinch of salt, but over time they can transform the whole dish. That's how tiny differences in DNA can build up to create big changes in species, in how they look and how they act and survive. So what's genetic drift? Most people think evolution is all about the survival of the fittest, but that's not the whole story. Nature has a plot twist. Sometimes changes happen purely by chance, like a flip of a coin, and this is called genetic drift. For example, imagine a population of black and white mice with an equal chance of survival. By chance, more white mice survive one year. Maybe the black mice were infected by a random hurricane, or they just didn't reproduce as much, and the population ends up being 1/5 black mice and 4/5 white mice. Over generations, the population then becomes dominated by white mice, even though they were equally fit to survive. If you take a look at the graphic a bit more, you can see that in a large population, the effects of genetic drift are not as drastic. Genetic drift affects small populations especially. The Birch Lab actually published a paper on this in 2024, and you should look into it if you're interested. So, how does the Birch Lab study genetic drift? So, they focus on viruses, particularly a virus called bacteriophage Phi6. Viruses are perfect for studying evolution because they reproduce incredibly quickly. This allows researchers to see changes over generations in real time. The lab also uses computational modeling, which is like building a virtual version of evolution. These simulations help predict how genetic drift affects populations over time and allow scientists to test ideas without needing to run physical experiments, which can oftentimes be expensive. The image on the slide shows a phylogenetic tree, which is a way to map out the evolutionary changes in a population. Each branch represents genetic changes, and the splits show where the populations diverged, which could often be due to genetic drift. A couple other things. A species refers to a population where two individuals are related and can produce offspring, but that offspring has to be viable. That means it also has to be able to produce offspring. And speciation refers to the formation of a new and distinct species in the course of evolution. Alright, so why does genetic drift matter? One big reason is speciation, which is how new species form. Genetic drift can cause small, isolated populations to become so different over time that they can no longer reproduce with the original group. That's when you get a new species. Genetic drift helps explain the diversity of life, why we have so many different species. It also shows why some populations survive and others go extinct, especially in smaller, isolated groups. But it's not just about animals or plants. The Birch Lab's work on viruses is critical for understanding how new virus strains emerge. For example, this kind of research helps us predict and manage outbreaks or even develop vaccines. It shows how understanding the basics of evolution can have real-world impacts. The graphic above is a few timestamps I took from a YouTube video about speciation. Speciation is caused by many things, and genetic drift is one of the things that influence it. I suggest you do a bit of research into speciation because it really is an interesting topic. This video by Rachel Tyler explains it really simply. Okay, thank you for learning about how randomness shapes evolution. I hope this helped you see how something as simple as genetic drift can create the incredible diversity of life we see today. If you're curious to learn more, I'd be happy to answer any questions.